I remember when I walked back into my bedroom, out of nowhere, I ended up seeing my babysitter going through my underwear drawer. And I looked at her saying, "What are you doing?" She ended up closing the drawer super quickly and she started panicking. And at that moment, I'm not gonna lie, it seemed like my babysitter was trying to steal my underwear. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba, and welcome back to another crazy but really insane story. So today's story all takes place back when I was in high school, and this was my grade 9 year. Now, in grade 9, I won't lie to you, I was a helpless romantic, and on top of that, I only was good at playing video games. In no way was I good at school, or even talking in that matter, because I used to have a really bad stutter. But I remember one time in my grade 9 year, I was coming home from school, and I saw my parents in the driveway with luggages packing their bags and putting things into the car. I didn't know what was going on, so I remember I walked up to them and said, "Mom, Dad, where are you guys going?" "Bubba, we're quickly going to be going to the States and we're going to be seeing some family, but you will be staying here to finish your homework." "Wait, so you're leaving me alone for the weekend?" At this moment, I was super excited and super happy because I thought, if I was just me in the house, you know how much fun I could have? Playing video games all night, being able to eat whatever I want, being able to sleep whenever I want. Like, it was the golden opportunity for me to be the king of the house. So as I was super excited, I remember my parents were telling me, "Bubba, you do understand you're going to have a babysitter, right?" At that moment, I got so upset. My mood changed like a pregnant woman on Tuesday. Like, I was just so mad all of a sudden to the point where I was like, "Wait, are you serious? You're giving me a babysitter? Mom, I'm like in grade 9. Like, I don't need one, bro. I can handle myself." Obviously, my mom wasn't falling for it, and I guess she kind of thought that I was just going to end up staying up all night playing video games, eating junk food, and, well, not ever sleeping. Which, to be fair, that's exactly what I was going to do. But that's not the point. Going on, I remember my parents ended up walking inside the house with me, and they sat me down on the couch telling me that, I need to make sure I get things done, and wrote down a list of chores for me to do. And at this point, I even got more upset because not only were they leaving me with a babysitter, but they gave me a list of things I had to finish and chores I had to do. Like, come on, bro. I thought things couldn't get worse. But then things started to actually kind of look up because I remember the door started to knock at my house, and right away, I ended up seeing my mom get up and go open the door, and she was just introducing herself to someone. Now, I didn't see who this was until I walked around the corner and saw the front door, and it was a really, really hot girl that actually went to my school, but she was in her grade 12 year. I remember when I saw her, I thought she was one of the hottest girls ever. And I've seen her around the school hallways before, but never did I expect her to be in front of my house. Like, I was so surprised and so puzzled on why this girl was a babysitter. But then out of nowhere, I remember she looked at me and said, "Wait, are you the person I'm babysitting? Don't you literally go to the same school as me?" Yeah, I don't really know why my parents got me a babysitter, but I mean, to be honest, like, it'll be chill, don't worry. I tried to play it off as cool as possible because, like, I don't know, it was pretty embarrassing knowing that my parents got me a babysitter and the person taking care of me was literally someone from my own high school. But I tried to play it off as cool as possible, and she kind of saw that I was trying to do that. But then her and my mom ended up going to the living room, and they sat her down and just told her, like, what responsibilities I had and stuff. And me, right away at that moment, I went upstairs to my room and cleaned it as fast as possible. There was no way one of the hottest girls in my school, that was way older than me, by the way, was gonna see my bedroom being an ultimate mess. So I remember as I was cleaning my room, I ended up seeing my parents leaving the driveway with the car, and right away at that moment, I heard footsteps coming up the stairs. I automatically knew it was the babysitter, so I ended up just shoving as many things under my bed so it looked clean, and then that's when she walked in. Well, she did knock, and then she walked in. She walked in saying, "Bubba, your mom told me that you should clean your room." "Oh, you already cleaned your room." "What? My mom said to clean my room?" Nah, I always clean my room. I'm not like that. "Oh, well, that's pretty mature of you." Yeah, I know what I'm doing. As you guys can tell, I was really still trying to play it cool with her, but I don't think she was falling for it. Going on with the story, I remember we ended up having some downtime, and she ended up basically going downstairs and hopped on the TV while I was playing video games in my room. And as I was playing video games, I ended up getting called from the babysitter downstairs, and she said, "Bubba, can you come downstairs for a minute? I think I need you to do your homework." "You think I need to do my homework? What?" I don't know. I was really confused when she said that, but I went downstairs with my backpack that had all my schoolwork in it, and I plopped it in front of her in the living room while she was watching a show. Now, the show she was watching, funny enough, was a show called Criminal Minds. If you guys don't know what show that is, basically it's about these investigators that solve crimes. It's just a typical crime show that is, on TV. No different than any other one. And I remember when I was sitting down watching the show with her, I automatically looked at her her and said, "Oh, wait, you also watch this show?" Yeah, I've been watching this for a while. Wait, do you watch this as well?" At that moment, me and her, we ended up sitting on the couch and we totally forgot about my homework. And me and her, we started watching the show together. And I love to do these things in these like mysterious shows about criminals where I basically get to predict the criminal before they even tell who it was. And every episode we would watch, I would always get it on the dot of who the bad guy was. She noticed this and she was very, very surprised and actually pretty turned on by it. Because I remember every time an episode would end and I would get it correct, she kept getting closer and closer and closer to me to the point where she actually like full on let me have my arm over her shoulder. I'm not gonna lie, for a babysitter doing this, it was kind of wild. And I know what you guys are thinking. Bro, wait, if she was in her grade 12 year, would that mean she's 18 and you were like, what, 13 turning 14 at this time? Yeah, I was, but that's not the point. I remember literally, no joke, it got to the point where me and her, we ended up looking at each other after an episode ended and we started staring eye to eye to each other. And then that's when I ended up shaking my head, kind of worrying about what she was gonna say. And so did she. And she looked at me saying, Baba, you should probably actually just do your homework. And that's when she got up and left. I ended up getting super confused because I thought me and her were having a moment. I wasn't gonna lie to you guys. Like, I thought this was my opportunity to do the Devil's Tango with her. But as I was doing my homework for like 20 minutes, I ended up realizing that I needed something upstairs in my bedroom. So I ended up going up the stairs and I did not see the babysitter anywhere as I was walking up there. But right as I enter my bedroom, I ended up seeing this babysitter going through my underwear drawer. At that moment, I looked at her and I'm like, what are you doing? Oh, nothing. Don't worry about it. She ends up slamming my underwear drawer shut and she's like, I was just looking for something. Okay, cool, I guess. I said it in the most awkward way possible and she realized that and she stood up and ended up leaving my room. I didn't know what was going on, but honestly, I didn't want to think too much about it. So what I decided to do was go take a shower. I remember I ended up taking a shower and literally before I take a shower, I like to put all the clothes I already had on inside the laundry basket so it would automatically go straight to the laundry room when my mom got home. So I would basically take off everything, have a towel on, went straight for the shower, but then right after my shower, I came out of the bathroom and I headed straight towards my bedroom. And one thing I noticed was that my babysitter was in my room and she was sniffing the underwear that I literally had on before my shower. At that moment, I started to freak out and I'm like, yo, what are you doing with my underwear? Oh, nothing. Don't worry about it. You know what? Just here. She ended up handing the underwear to me and she ended up going downstairs trying to make things less awkward. And since that moment, me and her, we didn't even speak at all to each other. Like, no joke, she wouldn't be in the same room as me. She wouldn't want to look at me. Nothing. Which, to be fair, if I was caught smelling another person's underwear, I would probably do the exact same thing. But this is where things get hilarious because I remember a day goes on and basically I remember the babysitter woke me up and said that my parents were coming home soon. I got super excited because obviously I didn't want to handle this awkwardness any longer. And right as my parents got home, she ended up saying goodbye to the babysitter and, well, she left. But right as she left through the door, I went upstairs to my bedroom and I looked out my window. And right as she was walking away from my house, I am not even joking, she ended up pulling out something from her purse and it was my underwear and she was sniffing it as she was walking home. I am not joking. This was the most gross and insane thing ever. But not only that, this girl stole my underwear. I remember randomly waking up and I saw my babysitter literally with the camera taking photos of me with the flash on. I ended up looking at her saying, what are you doing? Oh, Baba, you look so cute when you sleep. Wait, what? Are you good, bro? And at this moment, I realized my babysitter was taking photos of me sleeping. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name is Bubba, and welcome back to another insane but embarrassing story. Now, today's story all takes place back when I was in high school, and I was actually in my grade 9 year. And in grade 9, I'm not gonna lie, I was a pretty basic kid. And by basic, I mean, I liked all the things that most grade 9 kids in my age liked. Like, for example, from Pokemon to Call of Duty to riding their bicycle and doing basically all the childish things you would normally want to do. But I think the most iconic thing for me was playing Call of Duty. I think that was like the most iconic thing for me back in grade 9. So comment down below what was your favorite game in your grade 9 year. But other than that, continuing on with the story, I remember as I was one day in my house playing Call of Duty in my grade 9 year, I remember my mom ends up coming inside my room. She comes inside my room and says, Bubba, do you plan on getting off the game? What? No, I'm playing team deathmatch. What's going on? Bubba, I need you for something. Okay, well, you can need me later. I need to finish this game. Bubba, just pause the game. Mom, I can't pause an online game. The amount of times I had to tell my mom that was severely insane. But then afterwards, my mom ends up coming up behind my Xbox and unplugging it. I was so confused on why until my mom said,
says, Bubba, I need to talk to you downstairs right now. Oh, fine, Mom, is what I said. And I remember I ended up going down the stairs. When I got down the stairs, I remember I saw my older sister and also my dad sitting in the living room. And he said, Bubba, I need to talk to you about something. Yeah, what's up, Dad? Okay, well, me, your sister, and your mom, we're gonna be going for a couple days. Okay, where are you guys going? Can I come? No, Bubba, you need to stay home and make sure the house is safe. Oh, you want me to protect the house? Okay, yeah, I can do that, no problem. I remember every time my parents would leave me alone in the house, I really wouldn't mind it. But knowing that my parents were gonna leave me for a couple days in the house, I got pretty excited. Thinking about all the stuff I could do without my parents at home. And actually, the only thing I could really think of that I would do would be playing video games. So I guess it wasn't that exciting, but still, it felt pretty manly to be in the house alone. But then afterwards, my mom ends up looking at me saying, honey, are you gonna tell him what we're gonna plan on doing? Wait, what do you mean plan on doing? Bubba, we're getting you a babysitter. At that moment, my jaw dropped. No joke, I was so like in shock that my parents were gonna leave me with a babysitter. Because don't get me wrong, they've done this before, but back when I was a baby, right? So now that I'm getting left with a babysitter, in my grade 9 year, like I was in high school, I was a full-on man. I had puberty hair. Like I was a man, bro, and there was no way I wanted to have a babysitter. But still, my mom ends up looking at me and she looks me right in the eye and says, Bubba, you're going to have a babysitter and you're going to obey her. What? But Dad just said I was the man of the house. And my dad looks at me and just starts chuckling, laughing, saying, Bubba, you are the man of the house. We're also gonna have a woman of the house. I remember I looked at him with such a blank face, just annoyed with him saying that. But at the same time, my dad was always the type of person to try to cheer me up in the most, I guess, angry of situations I've been in. But other than that, I remember afterwards, I ended up going straight back up to my room. I was upstairs angry in my room, just having a major child tantrum. And as I was getting really upset, I remember my mom ends up walking in. My mom walks in saying, Bubba, if I plug in your Xbox again, will you please stop yelling? Yeah, sure, Mom, is what I said. And my mom is unplugging it back in. I guess my mom knew that my biggest weakness back when I was younger was my Xbox 360. And I think to this day, still, video games are probably my biggest weakness that let me, I guess, have a more relaxing time in my mind. But I remember after that, the next day ends up finally coming around. And when I woke up the next morning, I ended up looking around and I ended up walking down the stairs. And I remember walking around going, Mom, Dad, are you guys home? Hello? And as I was walking to every room, I realized that my parents weren't there. So I ended up going outside to my driveway and I saw that there was a bright pink smart car and my parents' car was gone. And as I was looking at the smart car, I ended up looking around it going, what in the world is this? And that's when my babysitter ends up coming out the front door saying, oh, there's the cute little sleeper. Hi, Bubba. That's my car. Oh, is what I said. And that's when I realized my babysitter was already at my house when I was asleep. Obviously, I didn't care because I was fast asleep and she didn't really annoy me nor wake me up, which I'm happy about. But I remember I ended up basically going back inside the house and I introduced myself. I said, hi, my name is Bubba. Nice to meet you. Hi, how are you doing? It's nice to meet you. Oh my goodness. I saw you were sleeping and like, honestly, I felt really bad. So like, I didn't want to wake you up, but like, hey, like, how's it going? Good. Just a little tired. Do we have coffee? What? Oh my goodness. Wait, you drink coffee? You should not be drinking coffee. Okay, you know what? How about this? I got a new plan. For some reason, this babysitter was the most perky babysitter I've ever like had. But I remember she ends up taking me to the kitchen of my house and she ends up making me a hot chocolate. Which, don't get me wrong, maybe she's right. I was not supposed to be drinking coffee at my grade 9 year, but still, I was the man of the house. She had no right to tell me what to do. Well, I mean, she kind of did because she was my babysitter, but that's not the point. Going on, I remember after the hot chocolate, me and her, we ended up basically going over like all the house rules and everything she had planned for me. And then afterwards, I remember out of nowhere, she ended up going into her purse and she pulls out her camera. And before anyone says anything, no, this was no normal camera that, you know, a mom would bring to a football game. Like, this was a full-on DSLR HD Pro Max, like flash on the top with a Rode microphone on it camera. Like, more expensive than most of the YouTubers you guys watch nowadays. And I remember when I saw this, I looked at her and said, is that your camera? Oh, yeah, I use it for like work and stuff. What do you do? Are you a YouTuber? Oh, no, I wish. No, what I do is I just do like personal photography. But you said you do it for a job. Well, like, it's also a job. Like, just don't ask questions, okay? Is what she said, really upset. And I remember I just went, okay, I won't ask. I'm not gonna say anything. And I ended up going up to my room playing Call of Duty. Out of nowhere, I remember I ended up playing Call of Duty and I was up in my room for almost 4 hours straight. This was normal for me since, you know, I was a professional Call of Duty player. And since I was in my room for so long, my babysitter must have thought I fell asleep because out of nowhere, my babysitter ends up slowly opening my bedroom door. And she opened it so slow with her camera out with the light on. And she basically walks in, trying to sneak in until she saw me awake on my Xbox. She looks at me and I look at her, totally confused on what she was trying to do, and says, oh, sorry, I was just checking in on you. Are you good? Yeah. Why is your camera light on? Oh, don't worry about it. This was like, just, you know, I was just testing it. I just bought it. It's new. Okay. Well, I mean, can you not, you know, turn on your camera in my house? Well, okay, yeah, you know what? Just don't worry about it. And then she leaves my room really awkwardly. I had no idea why her camera light was on, but honestly, I wasn't gonna ask any more questions. But I think what ends up happening next, I gotta say, was the most weirdest thing possible. Because I remember, out of nowhere, I ended up going downstairs to basically see what was going on, since I heard the TV put on loud in my living room. And usually babysitters don't usually use my house TV unless they were like really that bored. So I ended up going downstairs to see what she was watching. And when I got down there, I remember I ended up seeing my babysitter on her camera going through photos. And when I snuck up behind her just to see what she was looking at, I realized all the photos that she was going through were of photos of people sleeping. I was really confused, and that's when I said, yo, who's that photo of that guy sleeping? Oh, Bubba. She ends up shutting her camera really quickly and says, oh, nothing. It was for a school project. You were studying people sleeping at school? Yeah, we were just like doing like a test on like reactions of people being asleep. Yeah, you know, it's a big girl thing. Just don't worry about it. Okay. Well, that's kind of weird, don't you think? It's only weird if you think it's weird, Bubba. And she starts getting offended. I had no idea what was wrong with her, but once again, I decided to basically just leave her alone and go back upstairs to my room and play Call of Duty. And I remember one thing led to another. As I was playing Call of Duty for another like 4 hours straight, I ended up getting super tired and I ended up passing out with my headset on. I fell asleep and I still managed to put myself under my blanket, but as I was asleep, closing my eyes, out of nowhere, I ended up seeing a flashing light. And that's when I opened my eyes and I saw my babysitter holding a camera right up to my face and taking photos of me. And at that moment, I woke up and I stood up saying, what are you doing? Why are you taking photos of me? Bubba, just don't worry about it. It's like I said, for a school project. No, give me your dumb camera. I remember I ended up grabbing the camera out of her hand and I ended up going to my balcony and holding it over my balcony. And that's when she ended up confessing everything to me. She ended up going on her knees and saying, no, wait, Bubba, don't drop the camera, please. Listen, I can explain, okay? Okay, explain. I'm waiting. And that's when she ends up saying, I take photos of like kids when they're sleeping and I post it on the darknet. At that moment, I looked at her and my eyes opened wide. And that's when I said, what? Yeah, and I get like paid for it like full time, okay? Just please, just don't drop my camera. It's really expensive. I ended up looking at the camera and I ended up looking at her and that's when I dropped it. I dropped the camera. And then I remember as the camera fell, she ended up basically literally jumping off my balcony for it. It was actually really crazy how she did that, but honestly, I guess for some reason, she just really cared about that camera. And as she jumped off, she ended up landing on the pavement of my driveway. And yeah, let's just say cops got involved. My parents were asking what was going on. Until apparently, for some reason, the cops ended up thanking me and my family for finding this woman because she was a wanted criminal. I remember when I went downstairs, I ended up walking up to my babysitter and I saw she had her finger up her nose and then she ended up scratching her peach with it. Like, ew. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba and welcome back to a super embarrassing story. So this story takes place back in my grade 5 year. So I was in elementary school and I was just a basic kid, and I'm not gonna lie to you, I did not know any better than the average child. The only thing I cared about back when I was in grade 5 was tech decks, video games, and also probably Pokemon. I love Pokemon and to this day I still do. But one thing I will say is that one thing I hated was that I was a major introvert, meaning that I would never be able to really go out and talk to people. Hell, I was even nervous to go and buy a pizza one time. Like, I could not talk to anybody and I always felt like I was really awkward. Obviously, throughout middle school, I started learning how to not be, but especially in grade 5, honestly, I was just not good with interacting or basically confront someone in any way. But I remember one time I was walking home from my elementary school after my classes were done and I basically started heading home. When I finally got home, I saw my parents were looking at me and one of my parents ended up walking up to me, which was my mother, and said, oh, Baba, so we're gonna be leaving for a couple days. We're gonna give you a babysitter, so do not worry, everything will be okay. Where are you guys going? Oh, we're going to quickly go visit your auntie in the States. So you do your thing here. Don't worry, the babysitter will be here any minute, but we have to go now, okay? I left some grilled cheese sandwich for you at the kitchen. Okay, is what I said, and right away my parents ended up leaving. Obviously at first I was really nervous about being home alone, but at the same time, like, it didn't seem that much of a difference since I wouldn't interact with my parents anyway, even if they were home. So I remember I ended up just going straight up to my room and started playing video games. Obviously in grade 5 you don't really get any crazy homework, so you know, I just ended up sitting there on my Xbox playing video games the entire time and pretending that everything was okay, until out of nowhere I remember the doorbell rang and I ended up hearing someone at my door. Now once again, I was a major introvert, like to the point where I was scared of everything. I was even afraid of my own shadow. So when I heard the doorbell rang, I remember I was super nervous to go basically answer the door. Then I ended up going onto my balcony and looking down at my front door to see who it was. When I looked down, I saw that there was a girl in like a crop top. She was like a basic girl. And I remember I saw that there was already a stain on her shirt. And I'm not gonna lie to you, she looked disgusting. Anyways, going on with the story, I remember I basically ended up looking down and she looked up right away and saw me. She ended up saying, hi, you must be Bubba. Can you come get the door?
I mean, I can. Okay, well, can you? I remember at that moment, I felt like it was a really awkward situation. So I remember I ended up basically going off my balcony, sprinting straight to the front door, and I let her in. When I let her in, I remember she looks over at me and she started smiling at me. And when I saw her smile, I am not joking, she had the most yellow teeth ever. Like, her teeth were more yellow than Big Bird. Like, it was ultimately disgusting. And I remember I kept looking at her thinking, how in the world did my parents find this babysitter? I remember she ends up coming in and she ends up basically, like, you know, introducing herself and basically telling me how we're gonna have a great time and just, you know, the basic rundown of how the night's gonna go. Obviously for me, I ended up just, you know, ignoring her somewhat. Obviously this wasn't my first babysitter ever, but I will say that, you know, I just ended up just pretending I knew what she was saying, shaking my head, and I went straight back upstairs. When I went back upstairs, I remember I ended up going straight to my Xbox and I started playing Xbox again. But 5 minutes later, she ended up coming up to my room, and out of nowhere, even on the stairwell, I ended up hearing like a little fart sound, and I was like, wait a second, what was that? And then I ended up seeing my babysitter walk into the room and say, oh, hey, Bubba. So I was just wondering, I'm a little hungry. Are you hungry? No, my mom gave me food before I left. Oh, okay. Well, I'm hungry. So is there anything for me to eat in the kitchen? I mean, you can just help yourself, is what I said. And I remember she went straight downstairs and basically started doing her own thing. To be honest, I don't know what she did because I was upstairs playing Xbox, but I remember 20 minutes went by and I ended up basically getting actually hungry. I don't know why in grade 5 I would eat a lot. To be honest, I was a bit overweight back when I was in grade 5. But anyways, afterwards, I ended up going downstairs, and when I started to head downstairs, I turned the corner and instantly I ended up seeing that this babysitter was leaning back on a chair in the dining room table with her feet kicked up onto the table with her toes out, and she was eating crackers and ketchup together. Now listen, crackers and cheese, that makes sense, you know, cheese and crackers, that's fine, but ketchup and crackers? Like, are you joking, bro? That's disgusting. I remember at that moment I looked at her and I basically looked at her really weird, and she looked at me saying, oh, you must be hungry. Here, do you want a cracker and ketchup? I'm good, thanks, is what I told her. And I remember I basically ended up walking away and went to the living room to watch TV. I remember after a while, I actually started starving even more and more, to the point where I ended up basically texting my parents that I was starving and that this babysitter cannot cook for the life of her. My parents ended up texting me, oh, Bubba, well, we left some cash for you upstairs under daddy's pillow. Go upstairs and get some money. So I remember I ended up sprinting upstairs, went downstairs, and I remember I basically ended up walking up to my babysitter saying, I was just wondering, is it cool if we order a pizza? I'm not paying for a pizza. Oh, no, it's okay. My mom gave me money to pay for it. Is it cool if we ordered a pizza? Yeah, sure, just order it. I was hoping you would order it, if that's okay. The reason I said this was because I was really nervous back then. I was really scared to basically call literally anyone. Yes, I had a phone, but it was only to call my parents. And to be fair, those were the only 2 numbers that were ever saved on my phone. Until obviously middle school, that's when I started pulling girls. But, you know, I was just extremely nervous. I remember this girl ends up grabbing her phone and she ends up calling the pizza place, orders us a pizza. Except this pizza was the most disgusting pizza ever. She ended up getting sardines on the pizza and then pineapples. And on top of that, she ended up getting olives on top of it. At that moment, I slammed my head up against the wall and I just knew like I was not going to eat that night, and I was just really upset. So what I decided to do is basically go into my kitchen cabinet and I ended up grabbing a loaf of bread and I ate that for the rest of the night. I remember 40 minutes went by and I ended up hearing the doorbell ring, and obviously it was the pizza guy, and I knew it was because I could smell the pizza coming from my window. And this babysitter ends up grabbing the pizza from the front door and calling me downstairs to eat the pizza with her. Now me, obviously I wasn't hungry anymore since I ate a loaf of bread, so I ended up going downstairs and I just sat with her basically. And I remember when this babysitter ended up opening up the pizza box, I am not joking, she ended up basically scratching her peach and literally was picking her nose, and then she went for the pizza slice. Like, bro, I didn't want to be anywhere near that pizza after I witnessed that. I was so disgusted, and I looked at her saying, are you not gonna wash your hands? Baba, why would I wash my hands? I'm a girl. I'm just naturally clean. At that moment, I realized that this girl had no sense of hygiene or anything. And me, I was just so grossed out to the point where I just didn't want to be anywhere near her. But let's just say things went from gross to ultimately disgusting, because what happens next, I gotta say, really freaks me out. I remember it was super late at night and it was around 10:30 at night. Now me, usually my bedtime was at 10 o'clock back when I was in grade 5. So I remember I went upstairs, I went to my room, and I basically started laying down getting ready for sleeping. But as I was laying down getting ready to sleep, I remember out of nowhere my babysitter ends up walking into my room. She walks into my room and looks at me and says, oh, Baba, I was just wondering, do you want like some company? I remember I looked at her really confused and I said, no, why? Is everything okay? No, it's just I can't really sleep by myself. At that moment, I was really confused because I'm like, wait,
does this girl want to do the devil's tango with me? Like, what in the world's happening? And then one thing led to another. She ended up getting under my blanket with me and laying down beside me and passing out. At that moment, I was super annoyed because not only did this girl stink of anchovies, but she was just super disgusting. And I just couldn't sleep, and I just felt like really weird. And also, what kind of babysitter does this? I remember after a while, like 20 minutes went by, and I was still wide awake. She was passed out dead, and I'm just laying there thinking, this could not get any worse. But guess what? It ended up getting way worse because out of nowhere, I ended up looking to the side, and I saw she ended up moving her like peach a little bit, and she ended up releasing the loudest fart sound ever in my bed under the blanket. At that moment, I remember when she moved the blanket a bit around after that crazy fart, I ended up basically getting a whole whiff of what was coming out of under my blanket, and I'm not joking, my eyes started to water. I was so grossed out, and I remember I really just wanted to get out of there. So I ended up getting up, and I actually ended up sleeping on my living room couch just because I could not breathe in my room anymore. I remember the next morning came by, and I remember she ended up walking up to me on the couch, and she asked me, Bubba, why'd you pass out on the couch? Is everything okay? I looked at her, and I just kind of rolled my eyes at her, and I went upstairs to brush my teeth. But as for this babysitter, well, one thing I was right about, she did not brush her teeth. And I remember she ended up basically sitting on my couch and basically was ultimately disgusting. I will say though, when my parents finally got home, things were a lot better because obviously she ended up leaving. I told my parents, never ever get that disgusting babysitter again. They looked at me confused, but I knew what I was talking about. Honestly, if you guys don't want a babysitter like this, and just fall for more embarrassing stories, peace out, guys.